shield on his face. He's like, "No, open the straw on the property. We're gonna be closed down." Like, who the hell would ever want to work for a guy like that? Anyways, and then we went over to
Hey guys.
Hi, sorry, we were in a different group.
That's okay. This group didn't work until just a moment ago because they ran the new
sorry, guys.
listings
We have
showcase.
it all in one account, so it was telling me to end a meeting. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do it.
All right.
Oh, well, good. Then I'm glad that worked out.
Yeah. So who's on here today?
There was like 5 of us in the other group, so I think that more should be joining.
People are moving over. Okay, cool. I have a new rule for launch. I need to be able to see your faces. I don't know what your feedback is if I cannot see you. So if you're in a 200-person Tuesday meeting, that's fine. But for this, I want to be able to see you guys. So unless you're naked, put some clothes on and turn your camera on. All right, welcome. Cool, I see some people coming over now. Good deal. So for next week, at least for now, use this number to get on the Zoom call, and we'll figure out if they're doing that showcase of new listings and needs, that it's not going on the same channel. So we'll work that out, but delete the old number for now and we'll work with this one. Well, I want to jump right in since we're starting a little late and people can catch up as they pop on. So if you saw in the Facebook group, we are going to talk about victories and celebrating today, you know, what you've accomplished so far this year. If you haven't noticed, we're almost to the halfway of the year. Can you believe it? We are, oh, thank you, Beth. Yeah, we may or may not do launch next week. We'll talk about that. But so we're at about the halfway point for the year. We're 6 months in. We have another 6 months to go. For some of you, you've been here for the whole 6 months, and for others, you're just starting out. So we're not just looking at where you are with your business, but just how your year has gone so far. So for those of you who are new, I'm seeing some newer names. I'm Amanda. I'm the launch coach in the New Agent Launch Program. I am an agent in the office. I'm an independent agent. I have a full-time assistant. She just went full-time this year, and I have about, I'm in my 6th year in business. I was once in your shoes with much fewer resources. So I kind of had to figure things out on my own to some extent and sort of create my own systems and formats and continue to do that, but I have much better resources at Keller Williams. I joined about a year and a half ago or so. So I'm really loving all of the things available to you as new agents. So don't take for granted what you have. There's some amazing stuff at your fingertips to help you develop your business, develop yourself as an entrepreneur, you know, find that great work-life counterbalance, all of those good things. So that's who I am, and welcome to Launch. We do this every Tuesday. This is going to be more interactive as we go. It typically was in person. Now that we've been doing it virtually, it's been an adjustment like anything else right now. And I think what would be more helpful is to do something more interactive. So make sure you've got some paper and a pen with you today, because we're going to go through a few things and I want you to be able to write them down. It's a chance for you to do some reflecting and get some, make some headway on some activities and some thought processes that will help you with your top 5 and also just help you get started in business. So much of this business is mindset, and I can't tell you how often I keep coming back to that. No matter how many transactions I close a year, no matter how many you know, victories I have in terms of my numbers goals, I continuously have to come back to mindset and getting myself in the right headspace, because regardless of how accomplished I appear, if I'm not in the right mindset, then I can very easily veer off course and fall off the rails. And so that's such an important piece especially when you're an independent agent and you don't have the energy of a team around you. Being able to keep yourself motivated and in the right headspace is so important, and will continue to be something you have to come back to and adjust and be aware of. It's not something you just set and forget. So really important to keep that in mind, and it's why I wanted to talk about celebrations and victories today. So like I said, we're about halfway through the year right now, 6 months in. We've got 6 more months of opportunity, but it's a good time to kind of reset and do a little reflection. So what I want you to first do is take a few minutes to just write down 3 things you would consider a victory or something worth celebrating from the first 6 months of the year. And at least one of them make business related, but they don't all have to be business related. Like I said, some of you are just starting out. So, but these can be small or large things that have had a positive impact on your year thus far. So don't feel like they have to be how many transactions you've done. It can certainly be how far you've gotten towards those top 5. So top 5 being listing presentation, buyer presentation, 100 contacts in command, your, now I'm forgetting, your buyer agency being part of that buyer consultation, your listing contract, and your offer. Just having that in practice and being comfortable and well versed in those things are your top 5. So it could be some activity or progress towards that, or something totally different. And now I'm going to ask you to participate. So who wants to share one of their victories from the year so far?
Well, it sounds like Elizabeth doesn't like raising her hand first all the time, so I'll go first this time.
Cool.
I'm going to say I'm getting closer to finishing up the mentoring program, which will be a big score for me. I will just basically say that considering it's not full-time yet, that I'm actually getting closer to creating new goals for myself, and that would be a real big confidence booster to say that I was able to finish that. So
Awesome.
were you wanting me to go through all 3?
No, just one.
If
Anybody
there
else
was
want to jump in?
no-
Thank you, Tim, for being the first.
I'll
The
go.
no judgment zone. All right, go ahead.
So I moved back to Wisconsin from Colorado this year, and went through a lot of like random job searching. I was still kind of in the service industry, and then just realized how sick of it I was. And so I kind of was looking for the right thing for me, and this just kind of happened upon me, but it was always something in the back of my head. So then just going through the whole classes and taking the exam and finally passing, it was just, a very big accomplishment for me.
That's awesome, Jackie. And I come from a service industry background, so I understand. That's great. And that's huge. Just taking that first big step is such a big piece. I'm sure for all of you, that was like a huge hump to get over. And then it's like, okay, now what's next? And so you're at a great point in the year where you can kind of reset and get some good goals in place for the next 6 months. Anybody else?
2 of mine were the same as Jackie's. I decided I wanted to get into real estate, and then I just passed my exam a week and a half ago. So those were 2 of mine, and so it feels pretty good.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
My third one
Well.
was that I kept my kids alive, so that was good.
Which right now is even more impressive.
Yeah, 2-year-old twins and they're alive, so I'm good with that one. That one's a huge celebration.
That is huge. Beth, you want to jump in? I see your mic's on.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've learned just by being in the classes and listening to some of the agents who have been around for a long time is you don't have to master everything to get started. And that's kind of been a mindset thing. It's like I thought I had to know everything perfectly before I could even begin.
And that's something that's hard. I think that's a great point, Beth. Like just getting in that mindset that like you just have to start and it doesn't have to be perfect. I think, this company does such a great job of providing some really awesome resources and models, people who have done well and are doing well. And I think it's very easy to think that they have it all figured out. I'm here to tell you, as somebody who's at the top of that leaderboard every month, who has high numbers of production, I do not have it all figured out. I am still mastering so many things. And you just kind of have to, make sure that you're being responsible and, especially practicing those contracts ahead of time. But there are going to be so many things you're learning as you go. And I agree, just getting to the realization of that is so huge, and being okay with moving forward and giving yourself the grace to figure some things out and make adjustments as you go. And that's constant. It'll continue to happen throughout your career. Anybody else want to jump in? Alex or Elizabeth?
This is
Jenny?
Laquita.
Hi, Laquita.
Hi. Yeah, I would say the same thing. Just what you were saying. I passed my real estate exam and I was really excited about that, but I was kind of waiting to be a complete expert before and then the coronavirus started. This whole experience started. So for me is to let myself get started and talk to people about it and let people know. And I've been talking to more people about it. So I'm really happy about that.
Awesome. That's great. Well, and I think it's good to know that this community of agents within the launch program is such a great resource for support and perspective, to say like, oh, we're kind of in the same boat here. And we're all figuring it out as we go. What are you finding to be most important, and who can we go to as our resources within the launch program, coaches, other people in the leadership team, to show us, what are the things we really should make sure we have in place, and what are the things that we can kind of develop as we go. So that's great.
Okay, I'll say something.
Jump in here? Oh, here. Who's this?
It's Alex. So,
hey, Alex.
Hi. So, yesterday I had the opportunity to show 2 units for another broker, and I think my biggest trepidation was, what happens if I'm going to get in front of the house and the sentry lock won't open, or I won't be able to punch the code and I'll look like an idiot. I can't even get in. And fortunately, I succeeded. So I think sometimes your head gets in the way of your progress. And turns out I knew far more than I needed to know to just show that. I think all these classes are great prep for getting us rolling, and sometimes it's just a matter of going. I guess I'd also say one of my accomplishments is starting to scratch into my database of friends, and it's interesting. You think you have all these names in your cell phone, and then actually some of them are just totally random, and some of them you haven't talked to in a long time, and you should be. So it's probably good practice for everything in life to just stay in touch with your community. I do have a question for you though. There's some people that you call, and people these days are so lonesome they won't stop talking to you. So if you attend like the old class, they go, 40 contacts in a day. And I'm thinking, one contact took like 35 minutes on the phone. I couldn't turn them off, So how do you gracefully end a conversation with somebody?
I honestly, for me, it's more important that I have a quality interaction with somebody. So I am not counting how many people I'm contacting in a day. I think it's good to have a goal in mind, and it's good to kind of see how those numbers branch out from contacts to appointments to transactions. But at the end of the day, I think if my true intention is to make great connections with people, then you know, the business will happen, things will roll from there. You know, there of course are some graceful ways to exit conversation, but I think at the end of the day, for me anyway, the way I interpret those, like how many contacts in a day, is more so about quality than quantity. And I think that served me well. So I think that's one route that you can take. In terms of the showings that you had, how many other people feel like, whether it's just getting out for a showing or making a phone call to somebody, feel like there's this big hill you have to get over mentally to do that? I will tell you that for me, that is still true. Like there are still times when I'm like, I have to do this thing that's really standard for my job, and I just can't get myself to do it. And so there are definitely times when my victory is just making myself do that thing. And I think the thing that pulls me over that hill is always going back to my purpose. What is my why? What is the strong pull that like gets me in the gut and makes my eyes water? That is why I'm doing this. And sometimes you have to like really go a bit high level, right? Like, oh, I just going on this showing or just making this phone call. It's easy to get caught up in the very small moment of that. But what's the big picture? What's the goal that's pushing me to do this? Why am I even doing this? And if you can find that in your gut, it'll push you past those bumps, because they're going to be there. There's always going to be those hills to climb over, and there's always going to be times you need some motivation. And that's why it's so important to set that that real intention behind what you're doing. And I think the momentum of victories and good things that are happening is going to make getting over those hills so much easier. You know, just think physically, if you're running up a hill from a standing position versus running up a hill after you went down another hill, and how much more momentum you have and how much easier it is to get over those hills. So if you can build some momentum, one of the great ways to do that is to remember to celebrate those victories. This is coming from somebody who is not good at doing that, and I'm still working on it. It's very easy to get caught up in like, great, that's done, awesome, on to the next, what's coming up, and to forget that it's important to reflect back and see where I was and what I've learned from the year and how I've grown. And I think, you know, having goals that are numbers based and saying, you know, this many transactions or this many people I want to contact is important, because measuring where you stand will help move your business forward, but it's not the only thing. I think when it comes to victories, you know, just those small things are huge. They are part of that mindset and part of getting you to move forward and develop. And at the end of the day, those even failures are an opportunity to learn and grow and move forward. And so sometimes you have to step back a little further from the situation to see the benefit, to see the growth, to see what's worth celebrating in that situation or from that time period. So if you're feeling like, man, I don't think I've gotten anything done in the last 6 months, I just feel like I'm spinning my wheels. I can't make 40 calls a day because everybody's talking too much, and I'm not getting further into my 5 because I keep getting distracted and yada, yada, yada. There have to be some little bits of growth and steps towards your goals or where you need to be to accomplish those goals. And they might be small. Sometimes it's baby steps. But ultimately it's moving you forward, and that's what's important. So if you are feeling like, man, I don't have a whole lot to celebrate or feel like I'm accomplishing, there are things there. The fact that you're here in this meeting right now tells me that you've made progress forward. You've made some good decisions. So sometimes it's those little things that you need to celebrate, and take the time to do it. Like, call somebody who you know will be excited with you. Like, you know, yesterday I got an accepted offer and it was 11 other offers on the table. I was so shocked, but it was so fun. And so I called my husband because I knew he'd be excited. You know, sometimes something some little thing happens, but I feel really good about it. And I just like call my dad because I know he'll be like real jacked about it. You know, like do what you can to find the people that'll celebrate with you to help you remember and keep the perspective of that movement forward. And it doesn't just have to be in business. Has anybody read The One Thing? Anybody? I talked a little bit about it last week. Does anyone know what the 7 circles of your life are from that? I shared it a little bit last week. Does anybody else have a frozen screen?
Uh-huh.
No?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Glitchy.
Yeah, this has been pretty glitchy.
Yeah, the voice is coming through fine. It's just the screen.
Okay, let me try this. Is that any better?
Yeah, not really.
Not really. Oh, technology. Let's see here. I'm gonna do. Get out. Okay. Is that any better? Now I have nobody's screen.
No. That's good. Well, not really.
Is that better?
It was for a second.
Darn. On my end, everything looks great.
Huh.
Well, we can hear okay.
Okay. Strange.
Louis, where are you?
Okay. Well, I guess we'll go off of, I'm not going to do anything with visuals anyway, so we'll go off of sound.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Anywho, so the top 7 or the 7 circles that are mentioned in The One Thing, and I'll post this to the Facebook group today. These are different areas of your life where you can set goals, and you don't have to set goals in every single area. It's good. It's better to focus on like maybe up to 3 at a time. But those areas are, and I need to cheat, are your spiritual life, your physical life, or your physical well-being, personal life. So spiritual, physical, personal. Relationships, spiritual, physical, personal, relationships, your job, which is different from your business. So it's kind of your role within your business. Your business is its own separate circle, and your finances. So you have spiritual, physical, personal, relationships, job, business, and finances. Now, when you're in a position of feeling like you don't know where to find a victory or something to celebrate, look to those circles, because if you're feeling like the world's falling apart in your business, there's a chance that things are going great in your personal life or with your, your health or in your spiritual life. So don't feel like because you're not where you need to be in your business that everything else is falling apart. You may have something that needed your attention more. So then it's a matter of figuring out how to counterbalance, maybe reset some goals and get yourself to the point where those other things can be tended to. So those 7 areas are something I go back to on a regular basis, especially when I'm doing a reflection on the last 6 months or the last quarter or the last week or just today at the end of the day. If I'm feeling like I'm having a hard time figuring out whether I am making progress, Those are the things I go back to. And I find that to be really helpful because it's easy to get caught up in what's not working. It's harder to focus on the good. I think in general, we all feel that way. So let me switch earphones here. Let's see if this one works.
Yay. Okay. So being that we're halfway through the year, like I said, I think it's easy to get caught up in where you stand on your numbers goals or things that aren't as important to you. So looking at those 6 things and seeing how they tie back to your why and your purpose and what drives you and motivates you is really key. And I pulled something from the One Thing website that I thought was a really helpful way to kind of do a little bit of an evaluation of the last 6 months and to help you make some plans moving forward to ensure that you're feeling like you're having a next 6 months with things worth celebrating and victories in there. So if you want to write down, like vertically down your page, the word reset, we're going to do like an acrostic poem, but it's not really a poem. It's just a guide for doing a reset mid-year. You could do this at any point. So if you're feeling like you just can't see clearly the victories or the things we're celebrating, this may be a good exercise to do to sort of reset your mind and your goals and get yourself in a position where you feel like you can move forward, get that momentum to get you over those hills and keep moving forward. So for the word reset, for the letter R, it's reflect. So we just did a little bit of that, looking at your victories, 3 victories for the year, 3 things we're celebrating. This is, like I said, something that I like to do when I'm being really good and on top of my planning. At the end of the day, I have a little wind down time period. It's about a half hour where I look through what I needed to accomplish today, what didn't get done, what I need to work on tomorrow, and then just generally like, how am I feeling? Did I do something in terms of self-care? Where's my mindset at? And what is a victory from today? And I just look for one, and it can be small or it can be big, but something to reflect on to sort of end the day on a positive note. For E, we have evaluate. So evaluate is, one very straightforward way to do that is to look at what your numbers goals are. So, for Alex, if it's how many contacts you make that day, or that week or that quarter, it doesn't just have to be 6 months, but if you're doing that for this last 6 month period, what's something that you can evaluate, that you had a goal? Maybe it was to pass your test to get your license, and you now can consider that taken care of. Maybe it's to, get through 2 of your top 5 that you have to do in the program. And, where do you stand in relation to that goal right now? Do you have those things completed? Do you still need to write an offer and go through it again? Where do you stand with that? Do you only have 50 contacts in command instead of 100? How far are you from your goal? And, what do you need to keep moving forward? Kind of thinking about that. So just evaluating where you stand versus what your goals were, or where you thought you should be at this point, and, what's the gap? Simplify. So it is very possible that the goals you set just aren't a good fit for real life. So Alex, like you said, 40 contacts in a day. If my phone conversations are taking 45 minutes, I can't make this happen. Okay, maybe it's time to simplify. So can I make a goal to have 5 really quality communications with people, really connect with them, and have those be really worthwhile use of time, and something that will lead to business or a great relationship that will later lead to business. A couple of weeks ago, we had a few agents from the launch program on who were talking about that relationship development and how it didn't immediately turn into business, But months later, they're starting to see that come to fruition. You know, I'm watching Elizabeth Mitchke, and you're building your community and you're connecting with people, and you're not to the point where you have a lot of transactions happening. It's going to all blow up at once. Like, it's just all going to come rushing because you're putting in the time, you're building those relationships, and you're connecting with people in a meaningful way. So you're, you know, sometimes that simplifying is not to say, I'm going to do X and it's going to immediately lead to Y, but to say, I'm going to do X 3 times in a very meaningful way. And I know that that's going to lead to Y a little further down the line. And how can I keep track of that in a more simplified way? So it really is a matter of breaking it down to that one small domino, that one daily activity or weekly activity that you can do on a consistent basis that's going to knock down those bigger dominoes and lead to those bigger goals. So sometimes simplifying is necessary. And as somebody who likes to set big goals and make things complicated, I can tell you that can be harder to do than you might think, but is absolutely worth taking the time to do. Break it down further, break it down further, break it down further. And you do have the opportunity to talk to each other about that, but also I'm starting accountability phone calls. They're 15 minutes. It's a chance to check in with me about where you stand on your top 5, your goals, your accomplishments, and your progress. And so this is the kind of thing that I can help you with, where you're like, but I have this goal and I just don't feel like I'm making headway. How can we simplify this? That's the sort of thing we're going to talk about in those calls. And all you have to do is text me to set up that time. So I'm taking 5 calls a week. Just text me to set up that 15-minute time. But if you're having a hard time figuring out, how do I simplify my goals? I've evaluated where I stand. I'm way far off, or I'm so close, but I just can't get through that last bit. Maybe it's a matter of adjusting that goal. So simplify. The next E is establish a plan. You know how much I love planning if you've listened to any of these classes. And I cannot state strongly enough how important planning is. In this business, especially, there are so many things that pop up unexpectedly that you cannot control, that are definitely a continuously throwing off a plan, right? Like total challenges to how you expected your day to go. That is the nature of this business. And especially right now, when a house pops up on the market and you've got to go day 1 and write an offer day 1, that can really throw off your plan. So having a solid plan in place that allows for some flexibility as well is so key. So like for me, I know my phone starts to blow up at 8 a.m. So if I want to get my major, most important thing done for the day, my one thing, I've got to get up early enough that I can get through that stuff before I start getting interrupted. So make a plan that works for you. If it's to say like you have kids and bedtime's at 7:30 and you know by 8:30 you can have a little bit of peace and quiet, and that gives you that half hour to reflect on your day or to make sure you accomplish that one thing. However it works for your schedule, it's going to be different for everybody, but having a plan instead of just letting the day happen to you and then at the end being like, oh my God, what even happened today? Or what even happened this week or this half of the year? That's because you didn't plan. So set a plan in place, know that it can be flexible. It's going to need to be to some extent, and be ready to evaluate that, to reflect on it, to simplify it and make changes as you go. I am constantly going back and readjusting my block schedule or what my focus should be on specific days of the week. It's never perfect. I kind of let it run for a few weeks and then I go back and check in, and doing this, reset, this reflecting, evaluating, simplifying, and establishing a plan is exactly what I go back and do, because that plan always needs adjusting, especially right now with the way things are going. There's, things are happening differently. It doesn't make sense to follow the schedule I did in February. So that's a really important piece that I can't stress enough. And again, if establishing a plan is something that's really challenging for you, that's the kind of thing we can talk about in accountability calls. to get you on track for your goals. The last one is T, and that's time block. So when you're scheduling everything, you're setting your goal to the now without establishing a plan. You're saying, I want to have X as my end result, and I'm working backwards, you know, building that out to a smaller steps and continuous activities. How do I make sure I'm doing those things? I'm time blocking them. So that can mean that you have several blocks in a row, but ultimately it can just be one, and it's an appointment with yourself. So if you want to have appointments with clients, you know that you're going to be entirely focused, you know, dressed and ready to go for that appointment. Your head's in that place. You are not being interrupted or doing other things at the same time. And that's how your block for yourself should also look. You would never be on Facebook while you're meeting with a client, or I hope not. So you shouldn't be doing that stuff while you're on your appointment with yourself either. So once you've had a chance to set that plan, build out backwards from your goal, then take that one thing that you should be doing and block it out. Block it out each day, block it out a certain day of the week, make it work for you. But that's super important. So reflecting, evaluating, simplifying, establishing a plan, kind of working backwards from your goal, setting it to the now, and then blocking out that time blocking, I think are so important. And while you're doing those things, you know, especially in the reflection time, that it is important to keep awareness of the things that are worth celebrating, that it's not entirely about what you're doing wrong, but it's about the progress that you're making. And it may not feel like major progress when you start to compare yourself to other people. Be really careful about that. Everybody's goals are different. Everybody's life situation is different. Everybody's definition of success is different. So don't get too caught up in seeing what other people are doing. Ultimately, you know that for this program, you've got a top 5 you have to accomplish. You need to get 5 transactions closed in order to move forward. But the goal is really to get you in a position to be a great agent. That's the progress we want you to make. And we know these top 5 things are going to get you that confidence, momentum, and the base you need to do a quality job for your clients. And getting through 5 transactions, again, will give you that momentum, that experience to move forward and be a great agent. And that's really what it's about. So if there's a week or a day where you're like, I didn't do anything in my top 5, I didn't write an offer, I don't have somebody under contract this week, then what progress are you making? And if it's, you know, I recommend going back to this reset. So halfway through the year is a great opportunity to do it, but maybe you need to do it weekly, or maybe you need to do it monthly. I set my goals quarterly, and so that's, if nothing else, that's when I'm getting into my reset for the next quarter. Starting to think about that right now for June, July, and August. So I highly recommend doing that. I know it sounds like either self-indulgent or not productive towards your goal, or something peripheral or extra, but I can promise you that these sorts of things are what's going to help propel your business forward. This is going to give you that positive base to get over those hills, to be really ready to rock when business pops up. So all of that is really important, even if it seems like it's not as directly applicable to what, you know, the baseline is of what you need to accomplish within this program. So I think that's a great way to look at, you know, how can we take a positive spin on the things that have happened, and how can you move forward and know that you'll have some things to celebrate the next time that you're doing a reset or reflection based on, you know, those 7 circles. So does anybody have questions about that? Are you feeling like what you've had a chance to look at through this reset is giving you something to look forward to for the next 6 months? Anything particularly challenging from this, or questions you have about how do you actually work through this exercise?
You know, I think having permission to simplify is a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's easy to get caught up in like I said, seeing what other people are doing and thinking like, oh, I should do 2 buyer consultation presentations every week through Zoom too, and I'll get 40 people who want to, like Harrison was talking about today. Focus on what works for you. Focus on making those connections. And, what is the real goal here is to build those relationships, to be an awesome agent, to feel like you're growing your business in a positive way, to have that confidence. So like, what do I need to do to get there? And those simple, small things can be very worthwhile and can be absolutely worth celebrating and should be celebrated. So don't forget to do that and keep the positive momentum moving forward. Especially right now, we don't have a lot of things to distract us or things to look forward to in the same way we did, 6 months ago. So it's good to give yourself a little grace with that.
Yeah, I know one thing that I came to terms with is I am going to use the transaction coordinators. So all my information is into Renee so that when that time comes, it's already set up. It's in, it's ready to go. Even though I don't have a listing at this very moment, at least it's in place, and that takes a weight off my shoulders.
That's great. Did it take a little bit of like getting over the mental hill of oh, I need a transaction coordinator, or feeling like that wasn't
almost like
thing?
kind of in a way, just because it's like, oh, I really should know how to do all of this myself. I'm kind of cheating by hiring a transaction coordinator, but after a while it's like, you know what, you shouldn't be good at everything. It's not possible to be good at everything. So identify your strengths, and it's okay to hire, if you're a good leader, which you should be a leader as being your own agent, you hire people around you that help you with your weaknesses.
Exactly. Yep. And it takes a much better leader to recognize their weaknesses than somebody who doesn't. And it's a very tough thing to acknowledge, and something worth celebrating is to acknowledge that you're recognizing where your strong points are not, and you're finding people who are great at those things to be a part of your business. So that's awesome, Beth.
Yeah.
I'm totally adding that to my time block for this week. That is a great tip. It's simplification perfectly. So I love that. I've been meaning to do it. I didn't write it down. I just did. It's going in my planner.
Cool. Awesome. Got a plan for it or it might not happen.
I like that it's more about quality than quantity with the calls, especially if you're in the bold right now. Because I was feeling a lot of pressure, and like I'm failing because I am not reaching out and making that many calls, but I've had a few more quality interactions. So it feels good to, feel like, oh, I'm not failing bold because I'm not getting as many numbered calls as apparently everyone else is, it seems.
Yeah, and I continuously struggle with that because bold pops up every year, and that like number of contacts is something I need to be aware of, but I do have to keep in mind that I'm communicating with people all day long in different ways. I'm just not counting it in the same way. I'm not doing a sit down and call 40 people. But I can tell you that those quality relationships and giving excellent service to your clients is what will help build your business. I mean, I'm on track for 60 transactions to close this year, and I don't make 40 calls a day. So there are other ways to interpret that.
I agree. Otherwise, I feel pressured to come across and have commission breath, as they call it. And I want to have a relationship. I'm not trying to, get a sale out of them right now. This is a future investment.
Exactly. Yeah, future investment is huge. It's such an important thing to keep in mind, to not have that anxiety about the timeline, but to say, it's really good to know that I've got somebody who I'm going to be able to work with next year or in the second half of this year. Just keeping in mind like what's best for these people and how can I best help them, and it's about them and not me. But knowing that, you know, all of those contacts will eventually lead to something great for your business, and also keeping in mind that that's not the only reason you're developing this relationship. And I think that it comes back to you. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda, I have a quick question for you. Are you
Yeah.
doing anything right now to find new clients or new people to reach out to while we're all kind of stuck at home for the most part? I mean, is there anything that you're doing outside of the home, going anywhere in particular?
Yeah, my assistant and I have meetings twice a week. Our big one is on Mondays, and we talk about where are we with our pipeline and where are we with new people coming into that, you know, community. And it definitely is more challenging. Usually when things slow down, one of the first things I ramp up is my open house, you know, whether I'm doing them for my own listings or other people's, because I know that face-to-face communication and connection is where I really shine. And so not being able to do that, we've been putting more effort into connecting with our past client community, which I'm quite good at keeping in touch with. And man, can I tell you that the amount of business that has come back from people who I've worked with in the past is so important to, you know, me reaching my goals, to building those relationships. I have quite a few people I'm working with this year that bought and sold homes with me early on when I first started. So just making sure that those relationships are really, you know, solidified and that I'm keeping in touch with them. So looking back to who purchased a home in the last, you know, 3 to 5 years and might be at a point where they'd want to move up, or might need something from me to help them prepare for that in the next year or so. So that's been one thing that we're going back to in a more conscious way. I do send out a monthly postcard to keep in touch with those folks and other people in my sphere, but we're developing a newsletter right now to have something else to connect with them. I think right now, if we can get people to actually open those emails and see what's available to them as a resource, we can sort of grow our fan base for that. And then it'll be easier to get connected with people through that at a later time. So we're working on that. And then also farming. So since I can't do open houses, I'm trying to hone in on farming 2 areas that I've been watching for a while. And so just making sure that the numbers are matching up with that being a worthy area, and then doing some activities like sending out mailers, trying to offer, you know, solutions and resources to that community. So we're starting to put that together as well. This is not something I did early on, and I have seen agents who have found a lot of success in farming, you know, a specific area, doing the hyper local thing. It's not what I've done with my business. I'm in 5 counties, and I still am very much in 5 counties. But I think it's something that it's a direction I want my business to go towards. So it's also me taking steps towards that part of my business plan to kind of shrink my area of service a bit, to improve my quality of life, to make sure I'm not spending all my time driving, and to really become an expert in some local areas that I am most passionate about. So it's not just about getting new business, it's a little more of a long game in that regard. But that's one of the things that we're working on as well. And really just keeping in touch with anybody who I think may be able to send me referrals. So communicating with my community who maybe it's somebody who can't purchase right now, but maybe they know somebody who can or is thinking of selling, you know, people's parents, things like that as they're downsizing. So just really, really tapping into our people, my, you know, sphere and past clients, and making sure that they remember and keep me top of mind as an agent who doesn't just work with buyers, but also works with sellers, doesn't just work with first-time home buyers, but can help people transition from a sale of their home to a purchase of a new home. So finding creative ways to do that without being annoying, and being genuine about it, but also continuing to put more of a percentage of my time into being there to help people. If you listen to Harrison this morning in our meeting, they are spending way more time and energy being a resource than they are saying, who do you know wants to buy or sell a home? So really keeping that as our main focus of being a resource, of being there to help people, of being a little bit of bright sunshine in their day. It can be that simple, just a happy hello or a cute little card. Those little things can go a long way, especially right now. So I don't think it has to be real complicated. And, ultimately, whatever activities you're doing should tie back to your goals and your purpose. It'll feel very genuine if that's where it's coming from. If you're not clear on what those things are, it's going to be harder to figure out what steps to take. And it's going to be harder to have that momentum to get over the hills. And people will be able to tell if it's not genuine. So it's really important to have that, as your core of what you're doing. Anybody else? So what I want to know is who has a new goal for the second half of the year that they're going to start working on right away? Like, what's one thing that you're like, I've been meaning to do this, or I didn't do it the last 6 months. One thing you're going to work on moving forward for the second half of the year. Elizabeth.
My CMAs. I need to get
CMAs.
back. Yes, because I have an opportunity in a couple weeks to go to my aunt's house. It started off as a tiny little 2-bedroom house. My uncle blew it up. It's like 5 bedrooms now. It's in Cedarburg, and her grandson's moving out. She wants to sell, but I want to be prepared before I walk in there, before the conversation even starts. So I'm going to work on that. It's going to be weird though. I haven't been inside that house in years. So
cool.
It's one of those big deal things that we need to be good at. So that's my big practice that I'm going to be working on.
So how are you going to do that?
Well, I already know the basic information. So I'm going to pull houses that have sold in the past 6 months about 2 miles away, and then compare and contrast, look at tax records and all this stuff. So
cool.
MLS.
Yes. And when you're doing that, it may be a good idea to reach out to another agent who works in Cedarburg on a regular basis or knows the community, like Shannon, to see what their opinions are on that. Like, utilize your resources and the time you have before you get to that point to have a really well-rounded view. So
I want to be
great.
overly prepared, and I already have a volunteer, Jenny, who's amazing. We've been talking a lot. She said, if you need somebody to go with, I'm totally down. So
awesome
to have a team member, even though we're independent, but still we're a team. So it's good.
Cool. So do you have that appointment set up yet?
No, my mother is going to be in town in 2 weeks, and I'm going to drive up there. She's staying with me. So
do you have like a time block set for when you're going to work on that, or how long you think it'll take?
I'm writing everything up today.
Awesome.
So I'm going to work on my planning for the rest of this week and then next week, because it's getting a little bit congested.
Well, and that's a really good point too. When it comes to your planning, when it comes to setting things in your calendar, reactively scheduling and saying like, well, I already have these 5 things scheduled for this week. I did this for this week, and it's like super annoying. So I didn't plan ahead well enough. I put in all the appointments I have for this week, and I'm like, shoot, when am I going to do all this stuff I'm supposed to do? That's not the way to do it. Give yourself enough time in advance to block out the times for the important stuff that has to get done. Your one thing to move the needle towards your goal, right? So what I should have done is plotted in the important stuff, my exercise, my sleep, my time off of work, because I didn't take any time off work last week and I am tired. All those important things, my major tasks to accomplish for the week, and then let the appointments fill in around. And keep those things as appointments with yourself. Don't scoot them around or cast them aside. Those are just as important as your meetings with clients. But yeah, it can get very full if you don't do it far enough in advance. And I fall into that regularly, where I have to reset and get those things in my calendar and make sure I'm not compromising, so I can fill in appointments around it and make sure I have time to get those things done. So I think that's a really good point, and something I was experiencing this weekend as I planned this coming week, realizing that I did not do that so well. But I'm celebrating the fact that I recognized it and I'm correcting it, and I have a plan moving forward.
That's awesome.
Anyone else have something for the second half of the year that they're going to work on? It doesn't have to be huge, but some. I mean, is anybody planning on doing any business the rest of the year? Or it's going to hang out and launch for a couple of years? Like, you got to have something. If you don't
I have a lot
goal,
of things that are just kind of on the back burner. People are hit the pause button, so things will happen. So I just want to be like yesterday in the training, we learned with Kimmy how to do all the zip forms and link with DocuSign and all that stuff. And I didn't know that process because I'm out at Lake Country and we were never taught that process. So now I need to get better at figuring that out. I didn't realize it when she did it, how more streamlined it is.
That's awesome. And that's a good point. When the activities of working in the business are slower, that happens very seasonally typically. And that's a good time to work on the business and really get those sorts of things in place. So that's a really good point. Anybody else? Jackie?
Well, I still have no idea what I'm doing. So, I have like all the goals in the world that I need to do right now. But I would say the immediate goal for me is trying to create a plan of taking my other business's contacts and evolving it into contacts that I can utilize, and to kind of take that plunge and make the announcement that I am doing this other career now. And so I'm trying to be like, figure out how to be thoughtful in saying that, and, not scaring my clients away from my other business, that they are like, well, holy shit, like, we don't want to work with this company anymore because she's not a part of it. And that's not true. But I just, so it's connecting the dots and really utilizing this other group of contacts that I have at my fingertips, but doing it the right way.
Jackie, as a past client of your other business, just word it like, you're delving into another creative outlet, like you're diversifying your creativity. They work together if you really think about it.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely can. In the last few years, I've had, more employees taking over a lot of the things that like I would be doing. And there's always a group of people that like want the name that's on the company. And so I don't want to scare away people from thinking that I'm not a part of it anymore or anything like that. Yeah. I think that you've worked with some of my other photographers in the past too, or just me?
No, it was just you. And then
all right.
Edited.
Well, I should probably maybe just reach out to some of my other clients that have worked with other photographers and myself to see how they feel and things like that. But that's really helpful, Shannon. Thank you.
Heidi Bird she's a new agent, but she closed her other business. She did dress design. So she utilized all her past contacts and did that same thing. And then the woman from Lake Country, who's on with Janine on Thursday mornings.
Connie?
Yeah, Connie. It should be on our YouTube channel. I want to say it was maybe 3 weeks ago. She talked about how when she became an agent, how she reached out to her past clients from when she was a hairdresser, but she like read the whole letter that she had sent to people. So that might be useful too if you want to go to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'm working on like the whole newsletter right now. And again, I'm just trying to be as thoughtful as possible, because also my contacts, like there's like over 1,600 that this newsletter goes out to. And I just know some people are going to be like, I don't want to read this. I don't want anything to do with this. And so I don't want to annoy people either. So I'm just trying to find that fine line of making the announcement, not, upsetting anybody or freaking them out and jumping ship from using our company in the future.
Yeah. I'd be happy to take a look at it if you want. As a
thank you
freelance writer, communication consultant.
Oh,
Have you
thanks.
heard-
That would be great. I'll let you know when I get a little bit further in it.
All right. Sorry, I
Thanks.
didn't mean to hijack things. Sorry, Amanda.
No, that's great. I think, just finding ways of, in a genuine way, connecting with people, I think is such a huge piece of what we should be doing. So, yeah, just, and being mindful of how that affects other businesses, other people, your relationships. I think it's good to be aware of that. It's easy to get very tunnel vision about like, I have to make this many contacts and I have to make sure they know I'm a real estate agent and I have to make business happen from this. There's a bigger world out there. So it's important to keep context. So I think that's great. Anybody else before we wrap up? All right. Well,
I do have one little question. Just who
Sure.
you would recommend talking to about tenant rights during the COVID stay-at-home order in Milwaukee? Who's most knowledgeable about the laws?
the Tenant Resource Center is a good reference through the city of Milwaukee. And you may want to also talk to Marcus Auerbach just because he owns a lot of rental properties.
I did actually reach out to Kimmy about a potential listing that I have that has a current tenant. So she gave me some resources, but I can pass those on to you. I can email you stuff.
Sure, absolutely. Tim Rose at KW. Did you know anything about just showings and that sort of thing? The woman that lives in my listing is a little older, a little bit more concerned about having people come through the property. So that's all.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Just a reminder that if you do not have any goals in place for the next 6 months, you better get your stuff together because you're not going to do any business if you don't know where you're going. You've got to work backwards from a goal. You've got to have some kind of plan. If you don't, things are just going to happen to you and it's going to take a lot longer to get yourself to where you want to be. So set up a time, text me. I'll put my phone number on the Facebook group again, but it's 414-534-7982, 534-7982. And text me. It's the fastest way to reach me to schedule a time for that 15-minute accountability call. This is not to work through a specific transaction or issue. That's what the helpline is for. This is specifically related to your goals, to your top 5, and to getting yourself through the program. So that's what we're going to be talking about in that 15-minute time frame. I ask that you set up the time with me. I've got 5 slots open a week, and you'll be prepared before we meet to know where you stand in each of those top 5. If you don't know what the top 5 are, they're on the Facebook page. There's an email that went out from Mandy. There's a number of resources to get that information. I also mentioned them at the start of this, so if you missed the beginning, go to the YouTube page. But that's what we'll be talking about, and I want to help you get yourself to the point where you have some momentum on those things. So maybe breaking it down and simplifying to that one thing. But making sure that we're keeping track of your progress. Having accountability is a really important key to reaching your goals. If you don't have anybody tracking where you are that you have to respond to and report to, it's a lot easier to veer off course. So don't forget to sign up for that. I have 1 person signed up already, but I only have 1 person signed up of 50-something agents. So please take advantage of that opportunity. And we're going to continue to make these more interactive. I got feedback about listings and listing presentations and information about that. So we'll be folding that in to the launch days when we have these meetups. And thank you for participating and for having your cameras on and for sharing and helping each other. I think it's awesome. Please continue to do that on the Facebook page. Take advantage of the resources to you and know that you're not alone. We're here to help you. So have a great day, guys. Have an awesome week. And I hope you have some good momentum going into the second half of the year from this.
Thank you, Amanda.
Bye.